on behalf of SDSU, School of Education, Counseling and Human Development, and the Early Childhood Education Department, the very program that our special guest completed several years ago, I would like to thank you for being with us tonight. Amy Verhelst's abilities as an effective educator began long before now. SDSU faculty members who supported Amy nearly 10 years ago while she was learning to be a teacher recall Amy's noteworthy ideas and sincere motivation to work for and with children. When she was an undergraduate in the Early Childhood Education program, Amy was observed as a caring and professional person, someone who worked well with peers and other college students. During her student teaching in the Fishback Center Lab Preschool, right here on our very own campus, Amy was able to gain first-hand experience learning with children, and she planned investigations and learning activities that reflected young children's interests, particularly with music. She went above expectations as she worked to provide the preschoolers at the Fishback Center with wonderful hands-on and multi-sensory tasks, and she even invited guest speakers from campus and the community to share musical knowledge and expertise with her young learners. Amy was mindful and intentional about supporting all children's development and needs, and her young learners discovered more than just information from her teaching. They developed skills, communication, and self-confidence. She understood, even as a college student, that those early years of a child's life are a remarkable and precious time of tremendous possibility and learning, something that she does not take for granted. Now, as a professional educator, she has continued to bring joy for learning to others. Parents of children who've been fortunate to spend time in Amy's classroom have many positive things to say about her influence. Amy is described as a kind, fun-loving teacher who loves to sing and dance every single day. In fact, learners almost don't even realize that they are learning because they're having so much fun. Amy embraces the magic that comes with real learning and growing. And when it comes to important curriculum and teaching strategies, Amy firmly believes in the science of reading and is advocating for teachers to begin implementing it in their classrooms. She is someone always willing to share her ideas and methods with her colleagues and also wants to engage with other professionals to find out more. It is clear that Amy's effort and passion are felt by more than just the learners she currently supports, and we are very glad to have her with us at South Dakota State University tonight. So please help me to offer a warm welcome to SDSU alum, Amy Verhelst, South Dakota's Teacher of the Year.
She can just answer all my questions. That was pretty good. So,
all right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, coming out on this rainy evening. My name is Laura Ackerhold, and I am an instructor in teacher education and also the faculty advisor for SDE Aspiring Educators, who helped put on this event tonight. So we're really excited to have you here with us. We have a number of questions that were submitted by students, and so we'll go through those right now, and then at the end there will be some time for Q&A if anyone wants to ask questions, ask some more follow-up questions. So, all right, we'll get started. We've organized them into some categories, and so the first category is just on your personal journey and your inspiration when it comes to teaching. So the first question was, congratulations on your recent selection as Teacher of the Year. This is a distinction and honor. Let me start with this. Distinction and honor are that much more incredible when you realize South Dakota has more than 9,300 teachers across the state. So what is your secret sauce, or the one thing that distinguishes you in the classroom versus so many other amazing educators?
okay. Well, that's a very inspiring start to a question, because there is so many amazing educators in South South Dakota, and, I don't think that I'm the best teacher. Sorry. I know I just got an award for it not too long ago, but I really don't think that I am the best teacher, because what makes the best teacher? There isn't a perfect description of the best teacher out there. I am very much a type B teacher. You come into my classroom, we're in kindergarten land. There's stuff everywhere. There's stuff on my desk, and I live off of sticky notes and half-completed to-do lists, and things just change day to day. But so I just want to keep it real here. Like, I may be the state teacher of the year, but when it comes down to it, I am. And I don't want to say it as just a teacher, but I am a teacher. I'm a regular person that I never would have thought that I would be in this place where I am right now. So I don't know what my secret sauce is. Like, that would be really cool if I had some sort of title of what it was and what makes a great teacher. But I hope I can tell you all some stories tonight and some things that got me to where I am today. So,
good. All right. The next one is, a lot of times people grow up knowing they want to be a teacher, while others catch the fever later in life. Can you tell us about your journey into teaching? What initially drew you to this profession?
Okay, so I was one of those kids that knew right away that I was going to be a teacher. My preschool teacher was Mrs. Maxwell, and she was the first teacher I fell in love with. I fell in love with the profession at 4 or 5 years old. And every teacher that I had after that, I continued to fall in love with these people, with this teacher, and with this occupation. And, getting to see a teacher in the classroom like that, where you are surrounded by kids, and you're having fun, and you're singing, and you're laughing, and you're playing games, like, to me, that sounded like a dream job. Like, why wouldn't I want to do that job? So now I get to live that dream job today. But to really understand how I got here, and kind of to go back on what distinguishes me apart from all the other teachers, you have to know where I came from. So when I was in school, I have very distinct memories. But before I even tell you those, I had a really big secret that I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my parents. I definitely didn't tell my teachers. I did not want my friends or my peers to know, but I really struggled to read. And that was something that really shaped me as a child, and it still is in my head today. I can read, but it was really, really hard for me. Like, I remember in kindergarten, and my childhood best friend shows up for show and tell, and she's reading Amelia Bedelia books to the class. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, how is she doing that? I was astonished. I was amazed that she had the capability to read a book, and I was still looking forward to nap time during kindergarten. So, it baffled me. Then I get into first grade, and I remember sitting in my classroom, and we were working in our VOAC books, so like previous teachers, you know what VOAC is. And I remember looking at the word said. And my teacher, and I did not understand it. They're like, S-A-I-D, that spells said. And I'm like, but why does it say said? Like, that's not the sounds that you hear. Like, why isn't there an E in that word? And my teacher just said, memorize it. We just have to memorize these things. We just have to know these things. And, well, I wanted to be a good student. I loved my teachers, and I was going to do everything that I could to memorize it. Well, I would memorize it one day, and then 2 days later, I would totally forget that that was the word said. But yet my peers kept moving on and were able to do all the memorizing that was asked of them. So continuing on in my education in school, every day was a struggle, because I had to continuously try to memorize stuff, and then I would forget it, and then I would memorize and forget. And, even in high school, I still struggled, but I did not want anybody to know my secret. That was my secret, and I couldn't let that cute boy in the row next to me that I've had a crush on since last week know that I did not know how to read that word. And I just always had that type of like shame that I carried with me every single day. Even though I loved being at school, I had fun, I have talents, thankfully, like I love music and I loved singing growing up. And so that was just kind of my go-to, like, well, that's my thing. Reading is not, but I can't let anybody know. And I remember in fourth grade, it started to catch up with me. I couldn't hide my secret anymore. And we were doing leveled groups, and I remember I got put in one of the lowest groups, and I was with the SPED kids, and it was like, they figured it out. They know my secret. I need to work harder. I need to keep reading. I need to keep memorizing all of this stuff so that nobody else knows and that they will not figure this out. And so I did that. I spent all of my evenings working so hard trying to learn this material and just try and like reteach myself and memorize it just long enough so that my teachers would think I knew what I was doing. But then the teachers did. They thought, oh, good job, Amy. And so I moved up a level in a group, but then I couldn't keep up with them. So this just continued to happen year after year. And so I still knew that I wanted to be a teacher, but then my purpose for wanting to be a teacher really changed. And this this makes me feel terrible even saying this. I wanted to be a teacher then because I'm like, well, it can't be that hard, right? Like, you get to work with kids every day, and I'm not good enough to be anything else. I'm not smart enough to be a doctor, and I'm not smart enough to be a lawyer, and all these things that my smart friends and the kids that school just came easy to them, I was never going to be able to do that. That was not in my realm. And so I was just like, well, I like teaching. I love kids. I love singing. I'll just keep, working with little kids. That'll be easy, right? Anybody can do that. And so as I progressed on and I came to SDSU, that was a big shift for me, because then once I finally got into the education programs and I was done with those gen eds, those were so hard. Chemistry and I do not get along, and neither do algebra 1 or 2 or whatever I had to take. So we got past that, though. You have to be resilient. And once I actually got into the education program and I started to learn about what it takes to be a teacher and all of the stuff that you need to teach a child, my knowledge just started to grow. And it's the Velcro effect. When you have a little bit of knowledge and you keep adding to it, it makes it stronger. And I finally felt smart. I finally felt like I was capable of doing things. And all of those years of shame that I had being compared to my peers and struggling with reading and struggling in school, but always wanting to do well, I felt like when I finally got into the education program that everything just started to make sense. Maybe it was because my mind finally matured and I was developed enough to understand those things. I don't know, but that's when I really found my passion. So when I was at SDSU, I felt like there was a lot of great opportunities working at the Fishback Center, working with kids, and those first couple times, like getting to be with the kids and getting to be the teacher, like I knew that like solidified my answer. Like, I am enough and I can be a good teacher. So then graduation day, somebody asked me like, well, what did it feel like to graduate? Well, as a teacher, you know what you're going to be, right? Like, our degree is education. You're probably going to be a teacher. You're probably going to be working with kids at some point. Whereas, you get some other majors, and I'm like, what do you even do with that? And then half of them don't even do anything with that major. But I was like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to teach kids. So I graduated, I got my first job, and I walked into my classroom and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I didn't walk into the best setting for my first year teaching, and the first year teaching is already pretty stressful, but I had a junior kindergarten class, half-day junior K, where it was a morning and an afternoon. I had 35 students. And that position was just like a turnover room. Like nobody wanted to keep that position. Nobody could establish it. I had no curriculum. I had nothing. So my principal's like, well, just pick out some standards. What do you want to teach? I'm like, I don't know. I just got here. And as I was teaching, though, that year, I tried to do what I could. I tried to do the best that I can. Every day that I walk into a classroom, I make sure that I do something a little bit better than I did the day before. And so I was pretty confident with that. And then I moved to kindergarten classroom. And that year, I actually got to kind of loop with some of my kiddos. So that was really fun to get to see that progression that they had. And when I was teaching kindergarten then, now I finally had a curriculum, like, okay, finally, a little guidance, a little help, like I got this. Unfortunately, though, it was a balanced literacy curriculum. So this curriculum that I thought was going to answer all of my problems just kind of created more problems. And I questioned a lot of the things that I was doing. And I was telling my students what my teachers told me when, like, learning high frequency words. It's just the way it is. We just have to remember it. We got to remember it by heart. We have to, that's just how it is. And I, like, hearing that as a kid, like, that didn't work for me. And now hearing it come out of my own mouth, teaching these kids, just memorize it. We'll figure it out, okay? But I tricked them because I love to sing and I love to dance. So I just came up with songs with everything because that's the way that I had to compensate for my learning was I had to come up with anything that I could, and that was usually musical. So I was teaching my kids high-frequency words and songs. My student teacher's here right now. She knows about 175 words. We can do a song, and I still use them because they are fun. They're really enjoyable. But I thought that was enough. Like, I thought that was going to work. So then I got a job, and I moved to Indianapolis. I was in the suburbs of Indianapolis, so I was in a really, really good school district. And again, we had this balanced literacy curriculum, and I'm like, oh, I know how to teach this. I can rock this out. Like, let's do this. And while I was there, I had a student named Joshua. And I will never forget Joshua. He was like the goofiest little kid. Imagine a Pokemon and Jim Carrey mixed together. That was him. Like, he came to school every day, and he could make me laugh and smile. And when he did his Jim Carrey, like, Grinch acting out, the whole class would be rolling. I would be crying in laughter. And so he was just a very memorable kid, right? Super happy, loves life, loves to be around his friends. But Joshua couldn't read. He really, really struggled. So what did I do? I took away his recess so that I could work with him to read. And I would just have him keep reading these terrible leveled readers with this predictable text. And then if he memorizes it enough, he'll learn it, right? Because that's what my teachers told me to do. But in the back of my head, I'm like, why am I doing this? Why? It didn't work for me. I couldn't memorize. Joshua cannot memorize these things. And it became almost like a punishment for him to try and learn and memorize how to read these stupid leveled readers. Please do not use leveled readers. If there's one thing you take away from this, just find the right way to use it. Okay, but the other reason that I'll never forget Joshua is because he struggled, and we sat there, and he looked at me, and he goes, "My brain is ugly. My brain is ugly." I don't ever want a kid to feel like that and think that there's something wrong with them. The way that I felt growing up and thought that there was always something wrong with me and that I was never good enough and that I was my hardest critic, I was doing that to one of my students. Every time he sat and worked with me, he dreaded it. He couldn't sit still. He was squirming in his chair. He was about in tears. His attendance was terrible because he thought his brain was ugly. He was a beautiful kid. I just told you, he had the best sense of humor. I wish I could see this kid again, just so I could laugh with him again. But I did that to him because I didn't know better. So as I moved on, I kept having students like Joshua. I had kids that couldn't read. And I just kept telling them to memorize it. We have to keep practicing. You're not working hard enough. Keep going. Don't give up. Let's read at night. Let's read at recess time. Let's read at all these time. We're just going to keep reading, because you're going to figure it out. Because that's what I had to do. I just had to figure it out. That's not what works. That is not what works for those kids. But there is something that does work for them. It's the science of reading. And I did not learn about the science of reading, unfortunately, until about my 6th to 7th year of teaching. So I had 6 years worth of kids that I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't give them the best instruction, even though that I thought I did. Doesn't mean I didn't love them. Doesn't mean I didn't care about them. I was giving them the best of what I had to offer at that time. But I did them such a disservice. Any of those kids, and so many of those kids probably had some sort of learning disability, like dyslexia, and I just thought they didn't work hard enough. I'm trying, and I should have known better. But when I came to Sioux Valley, I met a really incredible teacher. Her name is Elena Besnicek, and she truly changed my life because she was the one that made just the little plug, hey, have you heard of the podcast Sold a Story by Emily Hamford? And I was like, no, I haven't. And as soon as I listened to that, that was it was earth-shattering to me. I resonated with that podcast so much because this secret that I had still, 4 years ago, I still had this secret that I really did not tell people, that I struggled to read, and I'm supposed to be this amazing educator, this amazing teacher. And I listened to this podcast, and it talks about how balanced literacy is, it's ruining kids' lives because we're teaching them how to guess, how to be readers. That's how I was taught. And I was mad for my own self that I wasn't given the opportunity to learn the correct way. And I just questioned, what would my life have been, how would my life have been different? Would I have had more confidence in myself? And would I have been capable of more things if I actually learned how to read the right way? Because I can read, but I just wasn't taught the right way. And then learning about the science of reading and learning about this story and learning about dyslexia, my mind immediately went to Joshua. It immediately went back to those students that I had struggling year after year, and I just had to pass them on to the next grade. That hurt. That hurt listening to that podcast. But a good hurt. And it instilled this new desire, this passion in me that I have to do better. Because I know better now, I have to do better. And so then moving forward, I made it my mission. How am I going to learn everything that I can about the science of reading, and how am I going to make my instruction better for my students? And you guys, it's instant results. You start using the science of reading, and you start doing those practices, those research-based practices, and you see instant results. That gives you goosebumps, and that is what motivates you, and that's what motivates me, and that's what motivates my kids. And it was just exhilarating. I was stuck in this questioning this whole time, what is the problem? We know what the problem is now, and there's a lot of answers. We have to make sure as educators that we're doing what we can to solve that problem. If you don't know the answer, you have to look for it. I'm a very much a problem solution person. So once I realized what the problem was, I haven't stopped. I haven't given up on trying to solve that. And so now as I'm sitting here as the state teacher of the year, talking to SDSU students and talking to future educators, I'm just really excited, and I hope that with whatever I share with you tonight, or the stories that if you guys just remember Joshua, or maybe it's somebody in here, maybe you're thinking like, well, golly, I had a hard time reading too. Like, I wonder if things would have been different, what would it have been like? I just hope that you can take something away from this to give you that same fire that I have right now to advocate for change and advocate for our kids, because they deserve the best that we can give them. And if you don't know better, you're not going to do better. So as I think, like, what distinguishes me apart from other educators is that I'm mad. Like, I am mad that this has continuously happened year after year after year, and I'm ready to stand up to make a change. And when I was named the teacher of the year in my district, I was like, okay, this is awesome. Now what? What can I do next? And then I got regional teacher of the year, and it's like, well, yeah, let's go. Like, I want to scream this to everybody. Like, you need to know this stuff. You need to know about the science of reading. If you are in a classroom and if you are working with children and if you are teaching them how to read, you need to know the science of reading. And so I put my heart and soul into that application. And I just told what I'm doing in my classroom. And I told the things that I'm doing to help my students, to help inform my parents, to help my school district, to learn about curriculums that are based in the science of reading. And that's what my essays were, and that's what stood me apart from the other teachers of the year. It wasn't because I am the smartest or the most organized. My student teacher knows well off that I am not the most organized. She's been a blessing. But that's not why you win Teacher of the Year, for being most organized. You win Teacher of the Year by being completely consumed in your passion and doing whatever it takes to make your students' lives better. The other thing that I feel like sets me apart is that as a kindergarten teacher, I think I can change the world. And as educators, I think we can change the world. I think we can solve so many problems in our society today if we can help at the root of the problem. We can help our kiddos, our kindergartners, our first graders, second grade, third, all the way up. If we can give them the skill set and the ability to read and to learn and to obtain knowledge and share that knowledge, could you imagine what the world would be like? If we had a more literate country, even in South Dakota, if we had more literate people in South Dakota, how many problems that arise from crime or prison rates and anything like that, if you're literate, you're probably not going to make those bad choices. If you're illiterate, you're compensating and you're trying to do whatever you can to survive, which I don't blame them. It's not their fault. We can give kids that gift. We can literally change the world. And I think when I wrote my essays and when I did my interview to be the teacher of the year, I feel like my passion really shines, but this is really the first opportunity that I've ever gotten to truly, I told you guys my secret. That's a really big thing to me, to tell you my secret. And I know that there are so many other kids out there that have that secret too, and they're struggling every single day. I don't want any other kid to be told to just memorize it. I want them to learn it, and I want them to feel proud, and I want them to feel confident in their abilities, because they're capable of anything. It's been visible in my classroom year after year since I've started implementing the science of reading, and I just hope that as you all move forward in your education, that you really embrace the science of reading too. So that was a really long answer, but I knew I had to say it. And,
that's a great answer.
And now you can throw out a couple cards here, and we'll just kind of merge everything together. But
no, I think it's really important to talk about that. And I know in my intro to education class, we talk a lot about, a lot of times those struggles or challenges that you have as a student are the things that make you an even better teacher, because you're able to empathize with your students. You're able to see and feel and know what it was like to struggle in school, and then you get to be that for your students now, and you get to fill that need. And
I tell my kids that all the time, like, I really struggle, and now I'm like honest with my kids. I am the most honest person in front of my students. I feel like I get to be my truest self when I'm with my kids. Like, they don't judge, they love me, we love each other, it's great. But I tell them, like, I really struggle to read, and if you guys can do this, and I give them the why behind their learning, they're more motivated to do it too. Like I said, I loved my teachers. I fell in love with all of them. They were so great. It wasn't their fault that they didn't have the knowledge that they needed to effectively teach me and some of my other peers.
Yeah, so we're assigning you homework. Everyone needs to listen to Soul the Story. That's the plug if you haven't already. It's very it's fascinating, life-changing. And then we can all get together and have a podcast debrief.
I'm not.
That'll be the next event. Okay, but for now, we have a couple questions on classroom management and student engagement. So the first one was our pre-service teachers put together. Okay, yeah. We know that there is an art and science to mastering classroom management, but we want to at least be novices upon entering the field. So it is an art, right? It takes some time. Mm-hmm. But how do you create a classroom environment where all students feel valued and motivated?
Okay, awesome. Classroom management's my jam. I love it. It's so fun. And you get out what you put into it. So about a year ago, I got to take a really amazing professional development called, it was the Scott Irvin, the Kid Whisperer. If you haven't heard of him, it's really good. I know some of the SDSU classes have had you get the behavioral management guide, I think is what the book. These girls are like, yeah, keep talking, sell it. Okay, so I am not kidding that structure and that way to like set up your classroom, it has completely changed who I am as a teacher. So now I've got like all this academic knowledge and I'm like, woo, look at me. I know the science of reading and I know all this stuff. But now I have this other skill set of like classroom management doing Scott Irvin. And then I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Okay, so magic happens in my classroom because of these things. So at the beginning of the year, I think the question was like, how do you make sure your students feel valued and motivated? Mm-hmm. Okay, if you don't feel like you're a part of something, you're not going to want to participate. You're not going to want to be a part of it. So the thing that I always start the year off with is by creating a team. Instead of saying like, oh, this is Mrs. Verhelst's kindergarten class. That's a mouthful. I don't really like my last name. Don't tell my husband. So I usually go by Mrs. V, but that just sounds like it's my class. Like I have to take ownership over that class. So we create a team name, and it's a very collaborative thing that we have to do. And while you're doing this process, you're working on so many skill sets with communication and SEL. So we have to first generate ideas. You have to be bold enough to share your idea. And then we make a list, and then we have to vote. And inevitably, there's not going to be just a one-size-fits-all. So what do? We have to teach compromising. And so anyway, we get down to it, and we have a team name. And so this year, my team name is the Blue Eagle Kittens. And that is what I refer to my class as. And it's super fun because now they have the ownership of it. And the best part is like, I have to email the principal and see if it's okay. Because it's not my decision. This is our class. We have to get this approved. And so then we get the email back and she says, oh, it's good. And then we all celebrate and we're all excited. Like, yes, you get to be the Blue Eagle Kittens. I'm like, oh man, that's a mouthful. But it's better than last year. We were the Blue Flamingo Bulls, like a bull with horns. Okay, so then after that, so we had explicitly modeled and demonstrated how to create a team. So then within the classroom, we have smaller teams, and they have to then come up with their team's name. So again, you go through the generating ideas. You start seeing already, I do this on the second day of school, you already start seeing which kids kind of take that leadership role and who's going to kind of make the team work and who's the idea person and who just wants to be there and not really share yet because they don't have the confidence. You just get to know the kids even through this simple little process. So this year, I got to tell you our team names. We are the Teal Falcon Cats, the Green Lion Snakes, the Red Dolphin Sharks, the Yellow Bunny Puppies, and the Orange Rainbow Fish. It's a tough one. So I still get some of the names mixed up. Sometimes I'm lazy. I'm like, red team, let's go. But they have so much ownership over doing these things and having these processes. And the team that they create at the beginning of the year, like their smaller team, that's their team the rest of the year. So if those two kids don't get along, they're going to need to figure it out because they're stuck with each other for the year. Instead of, the teacher always just likes to let's move this kid over here and let's just avoid the problem. No, this actually makes them have to deal with that conflict resolution. When you have a disagreement with someone, what are you going to do? And then luckily there's usually somebody in the group that kind of takes that leadership role. And it's just really great to see. And the one thing that I love about our teams too is that the kids, it's not just, if there's 4 kids in a team and one kid's desk is a mess and, they can't figure out their executive functioning skills to save their life, that team has to help them. They have to support them. So, it's not that one kid's problem, it's a team's problem. So what are you guys going to do? And they just really learn to build that community within their groups and then within our whole class. And then there's other fun things that you need to do. You need to do your call signal. Ours right now say, Blue Eagle Kittens, and they go, caw-caw, caw-caw, meow. So people walk by my class and we're like, oh my gosh, okay. But it's so fun because they were the ones that came up with it, and they're the ones that take the ownership of it. And every time I say Blue Eagle Kittens, they know exactly what is expected. They know they need to do our call signal and that we're going to move on with our day. We have our secret handshake when we leave every day. We have kids that will not walk out of the room until they do our class's secret handshake. So when you feel like you're a part of a community, you're going to want to do your best for that community. So at the beginning of the year, we really set expectations. So now you are a Blue Eagle Kitten. And these are the expectations when you're in our classroom. And if you don't meet those expectations, then I guess we'll have to do some learning later. So that just means hey, you keep blurting while I'm trying to teach. We'll talk about it later. I'm not going to take our instruction time right now. Let's sit down and then we'll actually have an opportunity to learn. It's not a timeout. It's not a, you're a bad kid. It's you didn't meet the expectation. Let's work on it. And having those practices in my classroom, I feel like it kind of eliminates all of the problems because kids don't want to do learning later with Mrs. Verhelst. They want to get it right the first time, and they learn really quick what to do and what not to do and what's expected and what's not expected. And so with that, so valued and motivated. The other thing that I kind of need to go back, I forgot to talk about somebody really important. Because I need to tell you about being valued. So my mom was one of my inspirations to become an educator. That's always one of the questions. If you're ever trying to run for Teacher of the Year, figure out who your person is and why. But my mom worked in special education for many, many years, and she had this amazing ability to make connections with anybody. And she made kids feel so important, even adults. She still does it today. But she had this gift of working with special needs children, specifically kids with Down syndrome. And I talked to my mom every day, and she would tell me all these stories about her kids and their successes. And she taught me to appreciate where every child is at and celebrating their successes at their level, because her kids were probably not having the same kinds of gains as other students, but the gains that these students were having were, they were phenomenal for them. They were huge for them. And my mom would make such a big deal about celebrating when one of her students, I think he read a couple words or something. They actually called me. I was in college. They called me and he told me about it, and all three of us were celebrating on the phone. That is the coolest feeling, right? Okay, so you have to, and that's something that I still instill. That's a lot of ugh. Okay, that's something that I value, is celebrating people and celebrating their successes, because it's huge. That's all the motivation that you need. When you see success, you're going to want more. You want to keep getting better. You want to keep going. And so within my classroom, especially with our teams and our whole big team, I celebrate everybody's successes. So we do a lot of goal setting. No matter what level that you're at, everybody has a goal. Everybody comes to school to learn something different. And appreciating that and understanding where your kids are at, the whole class can kind of get on board. So I have a student in particular this year. I won't say his name since he's a current student. We'll just call him Johnny, because that's my husband's name. So little Johnny, he came into kindergarten this year, and I was a little worried. He didn't really know his letters, could not really hold a pencil, do any writing, some of those foundational things that you need to be successful in kindergarten. I'm like, okay, let's go, pull up our pants, let's get to work, we got a lot to do. And we started goal setting with him right away, and every time that he would start to get down and get tired and his head would be on the table, or I can't do this, I've never done this before, we talk about what his goals are, and they might just be those little goals at first. But recently, he just made a huge goal. One of his goals was letter naming fluency, because I've told you, he did not know his letters when he came in. But with the instruction that we've had, so we have explicit and systematic instruction. Yeah, those are big spark words. But we have really good curriculum at our school, and Johnny has hit his goal already for the end of the year for his letter naming fluency. What? So when he did that, him and I were literally jumping up and down, hugging and celebrating in the classroom, or in the hallway. And then when we came in the classroom, we were celebrating in the classroom. And we were so excited. And his face, and I told him, I said, you should be proud of what you did. I hate I'm so proud of you. You should be proud of what you did. You're the one that put the hard work in. You've worked every single day. You haven't gave up. You did the work. And he was just so proud. So doing those celebrations with him, a couple days later, we get a new student in our class. And, it's the first day. I don't really know who this gal is or where we're at. We're just going to throw her in. Let's see what happens, right? So I partner her with Johnny, and they're doing their fluency folder. So they're reading some of their CVC words, and they're doing letter naming. And this little girl, 30 seconds, read the entire page. And Johnny was like, "You are amazing." And he started celebrating her, and he was so excited for her, even though he can't do that. Johnny cannot do that yet. He will, though. But Johnny can't do that yet. And he started celebrating her and those successes that she had. And that kid is so special. He is the biggest cheerleader for everybody, even though he knows that he isn't as good as everyone. He sees the skills. He just saw that little girl crush at her fluency page. That's amazing. And but he's still there cheering everybody on and making them feel valued and proud. So, and I had to model. I didn't know if I probably not for Johnny. Johnny's a good kid because he already had that. But sometimes you need to model that for kids. They might go home, and the stuff that we worked on at school, their parents have absolutely no idea what they did, and they don't understand the hard work that it took to put into working on your fluency or working on your letter naming, and they might not know how to celebrate that. So that's your job. You have to celebrate that, and you have to show the value of the work and the dedication that they've put into that. And here's the best part. So I had parent-teacher conferences on Thursday, and Johnny comes in with this family. I'm like, I am so excited. I get to talk about Johnny's celebrations and all the great things. And we showed his progression that he's made through the year, and we showed how he's a goal crusher and how all of these things. And you guys, like, his face almost broke because he was like smiling so hard. And then his parents were like, we're so proud of you. And, we're all saying it like, I'm like, you should be proud of you. And he started crying. He literally was sitting there and was like, yes, I worked so hard. And his eyes teared up. And then all of the adults around the table were like, oh my gosh. That is what you guys have to do for your kids. I don't care what grade you teach. You have to make them feel so proud of themselves for everything that they do day in and day out, whether it's an academic goal, whether it's that social, emotional goal. You have to give that to them. You have to make, I've never done it, so I'm going to challenge you guys. See if you can beat me by 11 years. Make a kid cry. They're so proud of themselves. I will never forget that moment. Because when your kids leave your classroom, they're not going to remember what math lesson you did that day that you were doing grouping numbers by 10 or whatever like that. They're going to remember the way that you made them feel. Johnny's going to remember the way that he felt that night at parent-teacher conferences when we got to tell his parents how amazing he is. That's what you need to take away from this. But it takes a lot of hard work on your end to establish those values, establish those goals, keep up with those goals, maintain that, and keep your kids focused on what they need to do. But if we can set that goal setting for our kids in kindergarten already, can you imagine what Johnny's going to do by the end of school year? Can you imagine what Johnny's going to do by the time he's a senior in high school? Gives me goosebumps. So classroom management is all about the kids. Getting to know your kids, celebrating your kids. There's so many things you can do to get to know them. Take that time. You need to take that time to understand where they're coming from. Have a 1-minute conversation with your kid every day or with a couple kids every day, not related to academics. Just find out who they are. What do they like? Because the more you know about your kids, whether it's social or academic, you're going to be able to put that into your instruction. That data is just as important as any academic data that you're going to collect in your classroom. Knowing how to relate your content to your kids, the specific kids in your classroom, that's going to be the most impactful thing that you can do for your students.
I love it. I don't know about you guys, but I want to be a Blue Eagle kid. Yeah, so inspiring. All right, another question. What's some advice or what would you recommend for pre-service teachers now to prepare them for the realities of a teaching career? So a lot of our students here are somewhere in their education path. So that could be anything, but, thinking about their majors or certifications or opportunities, professional development, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, I think I've already given my plug on the science of reading, so please. But that's like the science of reading now. I feel like there's so much information out there, and there's so many ways to consume that information. Like I said earlier, you guys know my secret now. I'm not a great reader, so like reading research articles will put me to sleep. I try really hard, but I'm not quite there. But guess what's great? Podcasts. I have a 15-minute commute every morning, a 15-minute every afternoon, and it just kind of like gets me in the zone for the day. Listen to a quick podcast. There is so much great information that you can get, but the best part that I love about podcasts is that a lot of the information you can get, you can apply that instantly in your classroom, or you can try that new strategy in your room like immediately. And just network. I would say at this stage, as you guys can see, I'm pregnant. I have a really busy life, so it is kind of hard to find that extra time to continue my education. So I have to just find those little snippets of time. I'm not saying consume all of your time. I want you guys to have a healthy balance of, a social life and things, but still wanting to improve to get better. So find those people that you can network with and learn from. Try and consume as much as you can now so that when you come out to the field, you're ready. And I'm truly, truly excited and pretty jealous of you guys that I feel like SDSU has done a really great job of transforming the programming that you guys are getting, and you guys are coming out into the field with a lot of knowledge and more expertise than what you think. So come in to whatever job that you get and be confident in yourself. But I want you to be those change makers, because what's probably going to happen is that you're going to get into a building where they're still stuck on that balanced literacy stuff, and you're like, okay. But we know better now, right? We know that there's better things that we can do for our students. So even though it might be scary that you're a first-year teacher, you need to advocate for what you know, because you guys know more than you think you do. And there's going to be teachers that, well, this is the way we've always done it. We need to talk to them. We need to get them on board. We need to get them on our side, because this is about so much more than this is the way I've always done things. We have to continuously get better. We have to be the change makers. You guys have to be the change makers. There's some of us that are already in the field that have made that shift and have made that change, and I'll never go back to what I did before. I'm never going to teach the way that I used to. And I'm excited that I have this platform to get to share this message with all of you, because you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did for over 6 years. You don't have to do what I did to Joshua and so many other kids. You guys get to start off already knowing really great and amazing and effective practices. Isn't that so motivating for you? I mean, and then if you get into a building, I know this is probably like coming in, but you get into a building, find that person that you can connect with. Find the experts at your building. They're there. There are so many great teachers. There's like 9,300 teachers. There's a lot of experts within there. Just keep your eye out. You're going to see those teachers shine. You're going to know which ones to go to, which ones to ask your questions, which ones to connect with, which ones to bounce your ideas off of. And just don't be afraid. Be confident, because you guys are enough. And you guys are going to do great things when you get into your classrooms.
Yeah, I love that you talk about just the foundation, right? The foundation you get here in your teacher prep programs and everything SDSU has, right? Your degrees, minors, we have our special ed program, but then that's just the beginning, right? Like every year you step into your career and you keep learning that lifelong learner mentality as a teacher too, and formal and informal, even things like podcasts.
Oh yeah, for sure. And sorry, the younger generation, but Facebook. I know. I laugh. I'm like, gosh, I didn't realize I hit that threshold of age. So, but honestly, I don't even use Facebook for like what it used to be for. I literally go on there because that's where I have all my networking. There's a really great Facebook group called The Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of teachers that didn't get what you guys are getting now, and you will learn so much just by scrolling the internet on that. So that's a really great resource too. That's where you can learn about what podcasts to listen to, who is somebody who is actually Science of Reading. Please don't just go on Teachers Pay Teachers and type in Science of Reading and hope for the best. Don't do that. Like, find the good people. Find who knows what they're talking about, what they're doing. You guys can do it. It's really cool. Once you dive into it, I'm telling you, I still don't stop. My coworkers make fun of me every day. I'm like, I was listening to this podcast. They're like, oh, we know you were. But just every day, make that promise to yourself. Make that promise to your kids that you're going to do what you can to improve your practices. Get better every day.
Great. Well, for sake of time, I want to open it up to the audience. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask you after hearing you talk tonight. So if you have, it's hard to see out there. It's very bright up here. But Caitlin is going to have a microphone, so she'll bring that around. Does anyone have any questions?
It's going to make you guys just use your teacher voice.
Yes, or you can use your
microphone.
teacher voice. Any questions? Yeah, here's one.
So I was wondering about how to, like, you were talking about celebrating each student and their goals. What is on? Okay, perfect. How do you differentiate celebrating expected behavior versus the actual goals that they have made? Because I have seen like a lot of the struggle right now in a classroom that I'm in is a teacher celebrating expected behaviors and then students only doing that expected behavior to get the celebration.
Yeah, like a ticket type thing.
Yeah, like if you do this, then you'll get a piece of candy. If you line up nicely, then you'll get a piece of candy.
Sorry, did I do that?
Like, how do you make sure that you're not celebrating the things that are expected?
I think it's just setting that boundary in your classroom. Like, this is what a Blue Eagle kitten is. This is what we do in this classroom. And I know that doesn't really answer your question, but I am not one of those, like, you get a sticker every time you do the right thing, because that's not how I grew up. Like, you have to earn your recognition, and you have to be the one that works hard to, if you want a sticker, I'll give you a sticker, but is that going to solve the problem? No. I guess... you have to set, and you have to model it. You have to show it. I know the answer. Strategic noticing. Whenever I'm in my classroom, I will notice the good things that I see, and I don't say it like, oh, good job doing this on this. I'll say, I notice you're sitting politely at the carpet, or I notice this person has their eyes on the speaker. And you know what happens? As soon as I even say the words, I notice, my kids sit up straighter and they're ready for it, because that's all the incentive I guess they need. My kids don't need stickers. They don't need those extra things to get. They just want to be noticed. They want to be seen in the classroom. So I noticed that you didn't give up on that challenging problem today. And that's what makes them feel good, and not just saying great job, awesome work, I do say those things, but giving them the specific detail of what they're doing in the classroom, and the other kids hear that, they want to get noticed then too. And I even have kids all the time, well, I raised my hand. Well, I did that too. Well, I know that, I noticed, but and you just have to kind of keep going on. But strategic noticing is key. That's in that Kid Whisper stuff. So that was transformative in my classroom too. So. And it just makes you more positive too, versus focusing on negative behaviors. I hardly ever address negative behaviors in my room. I mean, you have to at some points, if kids jumping off the chair, trying to, climb across the desks. But when you focus on the positives, it just makes you feel better too. I very much used to get really annoyed and hyper-focused on that one kid, that one sit still, that was always bugging everybody, blurting, and then you would interrupt your teaching to correct that, and then it just set off this bad vibe in your room. But now when I see those kids, I'm like, we'll do some learning later, and they're like, oh man. But if you keep everything positive, I think in that book, it's every 30 seconds you're supposed to strategically notice something positive in your room. And at first you're like, oh my gosh, that's all I say, but it works. If you can establish that and maintain that in your classroom, it's good vibes all day, and it's so fun, and the kids know what to do. So they like to be noticed, they like to be seen, and that acknowledgement is enough if that's the culture you have established in your classroom. So,
that's a great question. Are there any other questions? So bright.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. We have time for one more. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So, All right, thank you so much, Amy, for
Yeah.
all of these beautiful answers. One of the cornerstones of SDSU's teacher ed program across the board is play. So could you talk about how you incorporate play into your kindergarten classroom?
Oh my gosh, play is so fun. We put a lot of content into our day now in kindergarten, so I have to be a little bit more creative on how we get to play. But play happens in every single area, like whether we're singing songs. My kids' favorite thing right now is when we're working on our knowledge. It's with Amplify. We're reading stories and doing comprehension. One way to show comprehension is by acting out or doing like a reader's theater or retelling the story, and they beg to do that. So, but anything can be playful. I mean, it doesn't, you think of like explicit phonics instruction is like very rigorous and very boring. It is absolutely not boring. It's what you put into it. So I try to make our learning fun and engaging, and always encouraging the active participation throughout the whole day. And again, when the kids feel like they're a part of it, they're going to be more eager to join in. So then when we get to do those fun things later, everybody's really excited and motivated to be a part of it. Math, our whole math curriculum is play-based. It's, let's talk about this skill, let's talk about what it looks like, and then let's play games. Like, let's get to the fun part. And that is another one of my kids' favorite time of the day, is when they get to just play those games, but they don't even realize that they're learning. It's so amazing. So I know play looks a lot different as the years go on, but it's so important to incorporate that because they need that social emotional learning. They need to learn how to cooperate with their peers, and they need to have fun. I mean, it's kindergarten, but in other grades too, like, play. Even as adults, we need to play. And I think that's why I am such a happy person, because I get to come to school and play with my kids every day. But we're learning, and it's great. So don't forget about play. It's really easy to be like, we got to get all these things done and check off the list and keep up with your scope and sequence and all that stuff. But what did we do that made it fun for the kids? Always kind of think that way. I feel like I'm definitely an innovator when it comes to that, for coming up with creative ideas, inviting guest speakers in and getting to talk and play with them. We learned about the 5 senses, and one of them was the sense of sight, but it was like very in-depth, like how your pupils dilate and how it sends signals to your brain. So I invited an optometrist to come to school, and he brought a model of the eyeball and talked about your eyes, and then they got to play with him. They got to like play with the model. And so play might not be like, let's build with the blocks or let's do this area, but acting out stories and talking with guest speakers and people coming into your classroom to share their knowledge and exposing the kids to more things outside of their world, that is what I feel like is play in my classroom. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you to all of you for coming out and joining us. Before you go, I want to say a couple thank yous. So thank you to SDEA Aspiring Educators. Can you stand, the executive board, and just wave? And thank you for all your hard work to make this event happen. And Dr. Ortlieb and the College of EHS and everyone, we're very proud to have you as part of the SDSU family, alum, teacher education, and we're really proud of our education program here. And so thank you to all of our donors and faculty and students and everyone who has come out tonight, who has supported you and supported our program. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay.